Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome. I welcome you all to this lecture in the course Sandhi in Paninian Grammar. We continue studying Hal Sandhi or the consonant Sandhi. Hal Sandhi is the Sandhi that replaces a Hal. A Hal is a consonant. We stated that broadly Hal Sandhi can be classified into two, namely Ekasthanika Ekadesha and Ekasthanika Dvyadesha. Ekasthanika Ekadesha is one substituent replaced by one substitute, and Ekasthanika Dvyadesha is one substituent replaced by two substitutes. Ekasthanika Ekadesha is further classified into two, Purva Nimittaka Ekasthanika Ekadesha and also Paranimittaka Ekasthanika Ekadesha. This we have to explicitly say primarily because of the use of instrumental case in order to indicate the environment, which happens only in the Hal Sandhi. In the Ach Sandhi, the environments are clearly shown by the fifth case and the seventh case only. So, Purvanimittaka Ekasthanika Ekadesha and Paranimittaka Ekasthanika Ekadesha are the other types of Ekasthanika Ekadesha. So far we have been studying some examples of Paranimittaka Ekasthanika Ekadesha. Now in this lecture we shall turn our attention once again to an instance of Purvanimittaka Ekasthanika Ekadesha. Remember, we have studied instances of Purvanimittaka Ekasthanika Ekadesha right at the beginning of the treatment of Hal Sandhi, namely in the sutras Stoho Shtunashchuhu and Shtuna Shtuhu. Now this is once again coming up primarily because there is this Purva Savarna Sandhi which can be classified under this particular classification, Purva Nimittaka Ekasthanika Ekadesha. This is diagrammatically represented in this manner, where B plus A is the input, B is the left hand side environment followed by A, and this A is substituted by C. This B is Purva and this is a Nimitta, this is one Sthani and this is one Adesha. So Purva Nimittaka Ekasthanika Ekadesha. So B plus A is the input and the output generated is B plus C. Purva Savarna Sandhi is an example of this particular Purva Nimittaka Ekasthanika Ekadesha. There are two sutras that we shall study in this particular lecture while dealing with the Purva Savarna Sandhi, and they are Udasthastambho Purvasya 8461 and then Jhayo Honyatarasyam 8462. Let us first study Udasthastambho Purvasya. This is 8461 and there are three padas in the sutra. Udaha, which is 5/1 of Ud, which means immediately after Ud. Ud is a preverb or an upasarga. The second pada is Thastambhoho, which is 6/2 of stha and stambh. These are the two verbal roots, stha as well as stambh. And stha stambho means in place of stha and stambha. Purvasya is 6/1 of purva. Here 6/1 indicates the meaning of. So purvasya means of purva, that is of earlier or the previous element. The word savarnaha 1/1 is continued from anuswarasya yai parasavarnaha, and savarnaha stands for homogeneous sound, which is the substitute. Something peculiar happens in this particular sutra where the word savarna, which is part of a compound parasavarna mentioned in the previous sutra, is continued. So from within a compound, only one component or the constituent is continued in this particular sutra 8461. And so the sutra has just purvasya and savarnaha is continued from the previous sutra. This is something peculiar. Having put all these meanings together, the meaning of the particular sutra we get is the following. Immediately after ud, substitute the homogeneous of the previous sound in place of stha and stambha. I repeat, immediately after ud, substitute the homogeneous of the previous sound, that is the, in place of stha and stambha. Similarly, we have another example, ud plus stambhana of this same sutra. Here we have ud, where the comes at the end of the pada, followed by the verbal root stambha. And so udastha stambho purvasya applies over here and substitutes the initial consonant sa by the savarna, the homogeneous sound of the purva, that is this the. We arrive at this particular conclusion with the help of the paribhasha adeh parasya, which we discussed earlier as well while deriving utthana. So this gets substituted by the homogeneous of this the, which is th. So we have ud plus th tambhana as the next step in the derivation process. Now here, because of the environment of this th gets substituted by th, and then because of this th, this the gets substituted by th. So we have three takaras. Now we apply the sutra jharojhari savarne, because of which this second takara gets zero substitution or optionally deleted. So we have uttambhana with three takaras or uttambhana with two takaras as the derived output of this particular sutra. Now let us study the next sutra, Jhayo Honyatarasyam. This is 8462. This sutra has got three padas. Jhayaha, which is 5/1 of Jhay, and Jhay is consonants 1, 2, 3, 4, the columns 1, 2, 3, 4. And Jhayaha means immediately after Jhay. Haha is 6/1 of Ha, which means in place of sound Ha. Anyatarasyam means optionally. The word savarnaha 1/1 of savarna, which is homogeneous sound, and purvasya 6/1 of purva of earlier or previous, they are continued from the previous sutra. And so the meaning of the sutra is the following. Immediately after jai, in place of sound ha, substitute the homogeneous sound of the previous, that is jai optionally. I repeat, immediately after jai, and jai is columns 1, 2, 3, 4 of the consonants. In place of sound ha, substitute the homogeneous sound of the previous, that is jai, that is columns 1, 2, 3, 4 of the consonants, class consonants, optionally. So this particular meaning can be expressed in the form of an equation in the following way. We have jai plus ha, where ha is the substituent and jayohonyatarasyam applies and generates the output in the form of jai plus consonant 4. This is optionally done, so jai plus ha is another output that is generated. Now when we say consonant 4 in place of ha, there is a reason, and this reason is the proximity in terms of the prayatna, the bahya prayatna. Now if we compare the bahya prayatna of the jai consonants as well as ha, we find that the only consonant that matches or comes close to the prayatna of ha is the fourth consonant, and that is what is stated in this line quoted here. Ghoshavato nadavato mahapranasya samrutakanthasya hasya tadrusho varga chaturtha eva adeshaha. So ha has got the bahya prayatnas, namely Ghosha, Nada and Sambara, and also Mahaprana. Now amongst the 4 class consonants, only the fourth one matches with these bahya prayatnas. So in the ka varga, only gha has got Ghosha, Nada, Sambar as well as Mahaprana as the bahya prayatna. So in place of this ha, gha or jha or dha or dha or bha will be the substitute. Ghoshavato nadavato mahapranasya samvrtakanthasya hasya tadrusho varga chaturtha eva adeshaha. This is the guiding principle. Now these are the jai sounds: kakha gagha, chacha jajha, tatha dadha, tatha dadha and papha babha. These are the jai sounds, where we have consonants column 1, class consonants column 2, class consonants column 3 and class consonants column 4. This is how they were mentioned: C 1, 2, 3 and 4. So when jai appears over here followed by ha in the samhita mode, this ha is replaced by the savarna of these 4. So now there has to be one amongst these 4 which matches this ha, and that's what we said earlier. The only consonant among these 4 that matches with this ha in terms of the bahya prayatnas is this gha, C4. Gha, jha, dha, dha and bha. Only this matches, and that is the reason why ha is substituted by the 4th letter of the class consonants gha, jha, dha, dha and bha respectively in these respective environments. We also note that these 4 consonants ka, kha, ga, gha, they get replaced by the 3rd of their class ga, ja, da, da and ba. We have the sutra Jhalam Jashonte applying, and there are 3 padas in this particular sutra. Jhalam, which is 6/3 of Jhal, all consonants minus semivowels and consonant 5, and jhalam means in place of jhal. Jashaha is 1/3 of jash, which is the third consonant of the class. Jashaha means substitute jash. Ante is 7/1 of anta, which means at the end. Anta means end. Ante means at the end. Padasya is continued from 8-1-16. Padasya is 6/1 of pada, which means of the pada. So the meaning of this sutra is at the end of the pada, jhal is substituted by jash. Jhal, that is all consonants minus semivowels and consonant 5, column 5, is substituted by jash, that is column 3. We go back and so we see that these 4, they are also part of jhal and they appear at the end of a pada and then they get substituted by the third column, that is this ga, ja, da, da and ba. So we have kakha, gagha plus ha as the input. Jhalam Jashante applies and substitutes these 4 by the third, namely ga, and Jhayohonya Tarasyam applies and substitutes this ha by the fourth class consonant, namely gha. So the output generated is ga plus gha. Then we have cha, cha, ja, jha plus ha as the input. Jhalam Jashante applies and substitutes all these 4 by the third, namely ja, and Jhayohonya Tarasyam applies and substitutes this ha by jha. So the output generated is ja plus jha. Then we have ta, tha, da, dha as the environment followed by ha, and these ta, tha, da, dha sounds get substituted by d, and this ha is substituted by the fourth class consonant, namely dh, as the output. Then we have ta, tha, da, dha plus ha as the input. Ta, tha, da, dha are substituted by the third, namely d, and ha is substituted by the purva savarna, that is the fourth class consonant, that is dh. So we have d plus dh as the output. Similarly, pa, pha, ba, bha plus ha is the input and pa, pha, ba, bha is substituted by the third class consonant, namely ba, and ha is substituted by the fourth class consonant, that is bha. So we get the output ba plus bha. These outputs are optional, and what it means is that the gha substitution is optional, and so we can get ga plus ha as the optional output. So here are the specific examples. First, ka, kha, ga, gha plus ha as the input, and the output generated is ga plus gha. Optionally, so we have look plus hali, where ka comes at the end of this pada, followed by ha at the beginning of this pada, and so this ka is substituted by ga. So we have lug plus hali. Now this ha will be substituted by the purva savarna, which will be gha. So we get lug plus ghali, finally lug ghali. Similarly, ik plus ha, and this is a compound, so both are padas. So this kha will be substituted first by ga, and then this ha will be substituted by the purva savarna of ga, which is gha. So we have ig plus gha, igha. Then we have vag plus hari, and here we have ga being substituted by gha. So we get vag plus ghari, vaghari. Similarly, we have ghag plus ha, and this gha is substituted by ga, and so we get ghag plus ha first, and then this ha gets substituted by gha, which is the Purva Savarna, and so we get Ghag, Gh, Ghag, Gh. Then we have the examples of Ch, Ch, J, Jh plus H as the input, and the output generated by the sutra Jhayohonyatarasyam is J plus Jh optionally, which means that the optional output would be J plus H. So the examples are Ach plus Hal. This is also mentioned by Panini in one of his sutras, not Jhalau. So here we have Ch plus H. First this Ch will be substituted by J by Jhalam Jashonte, and then this H will be substituted by the Purva Savarna, which in this case is Jh, and so we have Aj plus Jhal as the output. Finally, we get Ajhal as the derived output. This is optionally derived, so optionally we will also get Aj plus Hal. Then we have Uch plus H. Here Ch is followed by H, and so this Ch by the application of the sutra Jhalam Jashonte will be substituted by J. So we have Uj plus H as the output. Then this H will be substituted by the Purva Savarna, which in this case is Jh, and so we will get the desired output Ujjh. Similarly, when we have Ruj plus Hana, J is followed by H, so this H will be substituted by the Purva Savarna Ruj plus Jhana. Finally, Rujjhana. Then we have Ta, Tha, Da, Dha plus H as the input, and the sutra Jhayohonyatarasyam applies, and the output generated is D plus Dh. This is the optionally generated output, which means that as the other option, the output would be D plus H. Here are the examples. Tut plus Hina. This is the input, where T appears at the end of this first pada, H appears at the beginning of the second pada. This is a compound, so there is Samhita mode which is obligatory, and so Jhayohonyatarasyam will apply, and before that Jhalam Jashonte will also apply. So first this T is substituted by D, so we have Tud plus Hin as the output, and then Jhayohonyatarasyam applies and substitutes this H by the Purva Savarna, which in this case is Dh. So we get Tud plus Dhin and Tuddhin as the output generated. This is optional, so optionally we will have Tud plus Hin. Next we have Ut plus Hina, and this Th is substituted by D first, Jhalam Jashonte. So we have Ud plus Hina as the output. This becomes an input for Jhayohonyatarasyam, and this H then gets substituted by the Purva Savarna of D, which is in this case Dh. So we have Ud plus Dhin, and so we get the output generated, namely Uddhina. This is optional, so the other output that will be generated is Uddhina. Similarly, we have Lid plus Hasa as the input, and this D is the environment in which this H will now be substituted by the Savarna of D, which in this case is Dh. So we get the output Lid plus Dhasa, Lid Dhasa. This is optional, so optionally we will also generate Lid Ha-sa. Next we have Ta, Tha, Da, Dha plus H as the input, and Jhayohonyatarasyam applies, and the output generated is D plus Dh optionally, and the optional output would be D plus H as well. So we have it plus hetu, and ta will be first substituted by the. So we have id plus hetu. Then this becomes the input for jhayohonyatarasyam, where ha is substituted by the purva savarna of the, which in this case is dha. So we have the output generated id plus dhetu, idhetu. This is optional. So the optional output generated would be idhetu. Similarly, kath plus hina. Th will be first substituted by the. So we have kad plus hina as the output, which becomes an input for jhayohonyatarasyam, which substitutes this ha by the purva savarna, which in this case is dha, and so the output generated would be kad and dhin, that is kadhina. This is optional, so the other output that will be generated would be kadhina. Then we have pad plus hati, where ha will be substituted by the purva savarna of this the by the application of the sutra jhayohonyatarasyam, and so now the output generated would be pad plus dhati, that is padhati. This is optional, so optionally we will also get pad plus hati, padhati. Then we have yudh plus hina, where dha will be first substituted by the by dhalam jashonte. So we have yudh plus hina as the output, which becomes an input for jhayohonyatarasyam, which replaces this ha by dha, and so we get the output yudh plus dhina. So yudhina. This is optional, so we'll also get yudh plus hina, yudhina as the output generated. Lastly, we have pa pha ba bha plus ha as the input, and the output generated is ba plus bha optionally. So optionally we will also have ba plus ha as the output generated. Here are the examples. First we have gup plus hasa. Pa is substituted by ba first by the application of the sutra jhalam jashonte. So we have gub plus hasa. Now this ha will be substituted by the purva savarna of ba, which in this case is bha. So the output generated by the application of the sutra jhayohonyatarasyam would be gub bhasa, that is gub bhasa. This is optional, so optionally we will also have gub hasa. Then we have tuf plus ha, and first fa is substituted by ba by the application of the sutra jhalam jashonte, and then this becomes an input for the sutra jhayohonyatarasyam. So this ha will now be replaced by the purva savarna, which in this case is the savarna of ba, which is bha. So we'll have tub plus bha as the output generated, which is tubha. This is optional, so the optional output generated would be tubha. Similarly, tub plus hara. Now here ha will be substituted by the purva savarna of ba, which is bha. So we'll have tubhara, the output generated. This is optional, so the other optional output would be tubhara. And finally, ribh plus hasa. This bha is substituted by ba first by the application of the sutra jhalam jashonte. So we'll have rib plus hasa. Then this becomes an input for jhayohonyatarasyam, which substitutes this ha by the purva savarna of ba, which is bha in this case. So we'll have rib plus bhasa, that is ribbhasa as the output generated. This is optional, so the other optional output generated would be ribbhasa. To summarize, we studied the purva savarna sandhi with some details. the meaning of the sutras, the anuvritti, the words continued from the previous sutra, etc. We studied the examples, the template ones first and the specific ones later on. These examples, especially of Jhayoho Netarasyam, are not found at all levels. There is redundancy as far as the mention of the sounds is concerned because 8239 applies in almost all the cases of 8462 first, and so the number of substituents gets reduced to only one. This is an important feature of this Purva Savarna Sandhi. We continue to study some more instances of the Hal Sandhi in the coming lectures. Thank you for your patience.